Really, the floor is yours, Sandy. Whatever you think I should know about, whatever you want to start with, I'm game.
Sure, absolutely. I guess mostly we just wanted to touch base with you and kind of, I guess, do another update, right? It's been about 6 weeks or so since we've probably gotten together, and just, the market's certainly been evolving and adjusting as we go. Looking at, March, I think shortly after March close is when we were together the last time, and we were talking about things like, mobility and work from home and the transition to e-learning and one-to-one devices and those types of things. And, now we've gone through, I would call it kind of 3 phases, right? There was the first phase that was good enough. And then there was kind of the second phase, which I feel like we're still in the middle of a little bit, which is kind of enhancing the good enough, because now we're going to be here for a while. It's necessary to have the bigger monitor. It's necessary to have the right camera, the right audio, enablement and those types of things. Whether it's a verticalized, application within healthcare, within education, or corporate, or if it's, the situation that, we're experiencing right now, right? So I think that, from there, this next wave is really where we're focused right now, right? So I feel like this time has been all about, as we were just referring to, adapting and, evolving as kind of the market needs us to. And so right now, certainly mobility is still a big play. The application of those technologies is a little bit different. And that's really what I was kind of getting at on the InfoComm discussion was, not a lot of new technology. We kind of expect that because of some of the challenges with manufacturing and some of the other things that we've seen right across,
Sure.
Over since really January, since we've been facing this challenge. But really it's about reimagining the technology to fill the gaps that customers are not facing, or end users are really facing right now. And so things like, thermal sensors and occupancy management, which is something that was used to some degree, especially in retail spaces with heat mapping and analytics and those types of things. But now we're seeing that reimagined for every vertical that there is, right? So we're, deployments in manufacturing and finance and, even small business and, enterprise, certainly, and corporate and healthcare and all sorts of different verticalized solutions. And so that's something that we're definitely seeing a lot of new kind of demands. I am very quickly moving to, launch bundled solutions as a service solutions, creative financing programs because of some of the challenges that we've seen there. But I'm also very quickly moving to add, product types that we haven't distributed before, right? So, when our customers have a need because of their end user request, they're really trying to be that, trusted advisor and that partner to their customers. And so we have integrators that are selling things like masks, selling, hand sanitizer. They're selling, working to build custom kiosks that allow for both of those, within an entry environment or, that type of thing. We're also seeing them add in, selling thermometers, so handheld thermometers, in addition to this now kind of evolved digital signage offering with the thermal sensor and, the scan to see if they're wearing a mask, and then the tagging and following them throughout the building so that they know who they come in interaction with, and that type of thing. Obviously, there's a whole world of challenges with some of that, with privacy laws and that type of thing. And then also, FDA requirements as it pertains to, some of these healthcare devices that our folks haven't had to deal with in the past. And so, so this is kind of this new phase that we're in, where, we are absolutely moving quickly to make sure that we can support those customers with every type of product request that they get. And we can share, some info with you, Dan, just with some of the product lines that we've got, we've brought on now that we haven't had before, and, some of the requirements that some of these customers are asking for, and being, being required to deliver for some of their customers, right? So.
Right. Yeah, that's one of my first questions. Essentially, you're laying out a pretty ambitious reimagining for the immediate term of different offerings you might want to have, products you might want to be distributing. So I guess my first question is, how far down that track have you been able to go over the last, 6, 7, 8 weeks since last we spoke? obviously it sounds like some stuff is already available to
Yeah.
SYNNEX partners.
Yeah, the majority of it's already available. So we are today selling everything from hand sanitizer to thermal imaging carts and stands. We have bundled solutions around telemedicine. Certainly, we have digital, portable digital signage. We have thermal kiosks that are now deployed, and then of course the financial piece of it. We already had a lot of this in place, and it's pretty interesting. If you'll remember in March, right before this started, we launched our Collab Solve business unit. So the team was in place. We've had the brands for, years and years and years. But the cohesive approach to the market, the enablement teams, the education, the LMS platform, all of these things that very quickly became a need from our customers were already in place. In an interesting way, we also already had invested, we had a dedicated education team. That education team is filled with folks that came from the education world, right? So whether it's K-12 or higher ed, former educators, former administrators, technology coordinators, folks that handled, E-rate deployment and kind of the funding streams on the grant side and that type of thing. So expertise there. We also had expanded our subject matter experts to include healthcare. So former nurse and technology user in the space that came on to lead our healthcare practice. Mm-hmm. And so, she jumped in immediately and started expanding our overall offering to support these types of needs, just anticipating those needs on the front end, right? And that happened in March as well. So, it's interesting how even prior to all of this happening, she may have come on in February, but prior to these things happening, we already were in motion to put a lot of this in place to support our customers and the needs. And so it really is just I hate to use the word pivot, but it kind of is, right? Just like a continued evolution of, what is our secret sauce, which is just being there to support our customers and our vendors. And in this market and with these new business challenges, it's just a continuation of that, right? So do we have everything? I'm sure there's something that we don't have that a customer needs. But I think that, our messaging and what I'm really trying to make sure that our customers are aware of is, we probably have more than what you think. And so that's where we've been, really trying to share that with them and, help them kind of see the vision of the things that, if their customers aren't asking for it today, they're probably going to. And so SYNNEX is the source for this type of, these types of products and these types of solutions.
So when you've talked to your partners over the last weeks and months about having these, whether they're temperature check options, digital signage software related to these kinds of things, are they pleasantly surprised that they're already available through the SYNNEX pipeline?
Yeah, the majority of them are. I will say that there's some, in some cases, because this is a little bit outside of the normal realm, right? So we have some that are jumping in and saying, yes, I need to be able to provide this to my customer. It's a different type of content. It's a different type of analytics. It's a different type of sensors, but we're used to all of this. So we can make that happen, right? And then tying it into things like access control and, emergency alerts and those types of things. Our guys know how to do that. We've got services teams in place, to help from an installation and integration if they need it. That's an area that we've also seen. So probably since we've spoken, March, beginning of April timeframe, our pre-sales support team and our installation integration kind of post-sale team has been extremely busy helping to support customers with the opportunities that they have. It's no secret to you, and you certainly heard, Sean talk about this a little bit in his keynote as well, that, a great number of our integration partners, furloughed, right? So they've had to furlough staff. And, a lot of them really started with the non-customer facing, support staff. And so that's where they were able to, or they've been able to leverage the teams that we have in place that were always intended to support them if needed, right? They were always intended to enhance or extend what their existing business practice. But we've definitely seen some, some serious uptick in the utilization of those services.
So is there a next step or a next series of steps that hasn't quite been put into effect yet, but that is already in the works to continue to serve your clients and serve your customers and serve your partners?
I think at this point, it's just that, yeah, I mean, we're constantly looking at the market. We're constantly looking at, what's happening and listening to our customers and polling our customers and polling our manufacturer partners to try to anticipate what's next, right? So as we're looking at, what does return to office look like? What does, cities opening up look like? What technologies are required, to encourage social distancing, to, manage this new environment that we're in. And so that's where we're just trying to stay ahead of that and helping to build out, partnerships and solutions to support our customers. You'll see a few announcements over the next few days on some of those partnerships that we've built out recently and that we're launching to respond to those demands and those needs.
I think at the outset of the conversation, you mentioned some financing initiatives you've embarked upon or taken upon. What would you say are some of the most important aspects of that, the financing options or offers that SYNNEX is offering?
Yeah, so a couple things. So, and we've, these offerings have been in place. What we've found is that we've been, a lot of these services that we have around subscription based or as a service or consumption based offerings, as well as what we call our RISE program, where, we essentially, handle the financing portion for our customers on opportunities. It ultimately gives kind of an almost endless credit line to customers. And we've got probably Alan Buttery or someone like that, Bill could get you connected with to give you details on that.
Sure.
But we've had some of these programs in place. And what we found is that now there's more of a need, right? So especially on the subscription-based or as a service, we have things like delayed initial payment for 90 days. So you come back to, these guys are going back to the office, they have a need for technology, that they don't have today. They start building that out. They don't even have to make the initial payment for 90 days, right? To start, obviously there's qualifications and those types of things that have to, be considered. But, those types of services are really important right now. And then the ability to have that technology with the monthly payment versus that upfront capital expenditure at a time when, there's still a lot of unknown, even when offices open and people are back to work, there's still this concern. And we've seen, what's happened in Beijing this week, right? So, and other areas. I was just talking about Greenville, South Carolina was a hot spot a couple of weeks ago, right? So, there's going to be these kind of surges we expect, but we also just look to the future and we really don't know. And I think folks are trying to future-proof as much as possible. And part of that means holding on to their cash, right? So, and making sure that they're not overextending themselves. And so I think that's where those types of programs are really important.
Yeah. So when you talk about your vendor partners, when you talk about integrators with whom you work, when I follow the AVIXA weekly updates, it seems like in general, the industry is moving in a more positive direction, certainly than it was a month ago. But when you talk to those vendors, when you talk to those integrators, are you getting a sense that business is beginning to pick up, that furloughs are beginning to peter out? Or do you feel like we're still kind of in this quasi lockdown zone where everything is still a bit frozen?
I think it's a mixed bag. I don't think that there's one answer for that. But I would say on a generalized basis, I mean, I'm monitoring our analytics on a daily basis. So literally looking at our average daily sales compared to the average daily sales of last month, compared to the average daily sales of the month before, and then looking at year over year as well, just to see where things are trending at the technology level, even not on the overall category, but then also at the technology level. And certainly, we're monitoring data from AVIXA and others as well. What I can tell you is that we're seeing positive indicators. What we're hearing positive indicators from, our partners as well. And so as we look at that average daily sales, as we look at that, month over month trend, we are definitely seeing some recovery, right? From a
Right.
year-over-year perspective, certainly, I mean, we don't expect full recovery year-over-year, right, for some time. But we are seeing month-over-month trends be positive
Mhm.
in all categories, including, things that are more experiential. So we're excited to see that. Our partners, when I say it's a mixed bag, it truly is. I talked to some of our integrators, and they, never furloughed an individual at all. Business is up, not down, and they're actually, I hate to say capitalize, it's a terrible word, but they're benefiting from some of the technology needs that are in the market. We have others who are, they were very heavily experiential, or, group productivity, or, events based, and they've seen a significant drop off, and they don't see recovery yet.
Yeah.
And so it really depends on what verticals they serve, the type of technology they're serving, how generalized they are versus specialized, and then what region, they're in as well.
So some of the trends that I've had my eye on, even before COVID, just general ideas, moving a bit away from hard codec, more to soft codec type solutions. In conference rooms, having a less densely integrated hardware centered room, having things be a little bit more stripped down, a little bit more like huddle space or group space centered rather than a formal boardroom centered kind of a thing. So these general trends going out into the ether. Do you see COVID-19 and the results thereof accelerating some of those trends, decelerating or reversing some of those trends? Even bundling, for example, bundling has become very big. The idea of making it simple for the end user, but one solution package where it's very easy, everything comes together. You don't have to necessarily integrate a whole bunch of disparate parts. In the context of COVID-19, do you see those trends accelerating, decelerating, or do you think it's not really germane to the point?
I think bundling of solutions is definitely continuing, and actually even more so as folks are especially venturing into technologies that are maybe adjacent or, completely outside of the technologies they've offered. I think that simplifying it so that they can have those conversations with their customers is definitely something that's going to continue.
Right.
As far as, things like huddle spaces and conference rooms, and the way that we structure our meetings, it's definitely going to be different. That the idea of, getting multiple people in a close environment for a meeting when we've existed in this virtual environment, I think that that's definitely going to change. We're going to see a lot of differences there. From a structural standpoint within an office environment, I think that's going to change. We've already seen that. We've already seen that through some of the communications that we've had from, our integrators and the end customers that they're servicing. A lot of folks are going to this hybrid, having a full work setup at the office as well as at home, and able to fully function in either environment. So I think that's going to change. We've seen a significant need for increased security, obviously.
Mhm.
That's something that SYNNEX provides today. That's something that makes us a little bit different, and that we've got, we really are diverse in our product offering and our technology solutions offering, but also in the level of expertise that we have within each of those, right? And so that's an area where we've definitely had a lot of our folks reaching out and needing support. Cloud is definitely, a trend that, had started before, but it's definitely been accelerated. And I think that will absolutely continue. So yeah, I mean, I think that, there's definitely a lot of trends around digitization of the workplace, and, that type of thing as well, that had begun and will continue, and actually in a lot of cases have been accelerated as well. So yeah, I definitely think there's a big change, with the market overall, for sure.
That's been my feeling as well. I mean, I've been in the industry long enough to remember, like the $1 million conference rooms of 10 years ago, where it was really hardware centric. And obviously it's been drifting away from that for a long time. But if we're going to enter a position now where a lot of people maybe on a semi-permanent basis are going to be working from home, coming into the office for group events, maybe once or twice a week, otherwise working from home. And that may or may not be the case, but a lot of people are predicting that. I think it would just further accelerate the trend toward bring your own device, soft codec based conferencing, as opposed to hardware centric, bulky conferencing, that is kind of predicated on the idea that there are going to be a lot of people in a room somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that there's a lot more latitude given for a more casual meeting than there was before, right? So, and I think that's certainly a trend that we've seen over time for sure. But I think it was also accelerated. People are now, I'll have a meeting with a senior executive with one of our, very large manufacturers, and they're in a ball cap and a t-shirt. I had one this morning and somebody had a hoodie on, and, so, which I'm not quite there, but a lot of people are. And so I think that those pretenses that have been a requirement for this work environment that we've been in have also kind of adjusted a little bit. And I think that there's both good things and bad things there, right? So, that personal relationship's important. One of the things that we're suffering from is not having those personal interactions. Even though we're in this virtual environment, we tend to jump on a meeting, very quickly, accomplish it because we've got 12 other meetings because everybody wants to meet about everything
Right.
all the time. And so, we're moving quickly. And so those conversations about family and friends and, pets and, all of those other things that maybe take place when we're at InfoComm together, having an actual happy hour versus a virtual, have been removed. And so now with this more casual type meeting, maybe it adds a little bit of that personal layer back. I don't know. I think the verdict's still out a little bit, but it's definitely evolving. And I think that people are just, they're becoming a little bit more open-minded about those types of things.
I think so as well. And I think it does add some kind of personality to it. You get to see people in their own environs. Maybe the dog or the cat walks by, or the spouse or the kids walk by. So I think it makes it a little bit more personal, a little bit less formal and stuffy, because you get a sense of the person, even if by looking at their, their Zoom background, so to speak.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I also think though it's allowing for maybe a little less high-end, virtual technology too.
Sure.
So, so people tend to, outside of the video portion, people don't really love it when the camera or the microphone's not working, but if it's working good enough, then, that you tend to get an okay on that. So interesting.
I think before we put the camera on, I was asking about some of the events that SYNNEX typically holds. Obviously, they had to be canceled or postponed given the circumstances. Has there been any discussion about, the next in-person event that might be taking place under the SYNNEX flag?
Yeah, there's lots of discussion. There are no decisions at this point. So we have, at this point, we have formally canceled our events through August. We are face-to-face events through August. We have not replaced or moved forward with events outside of that yet. Mm-hmm. We have a task force that's in place that's just focused on, the health and safety of our employees, but then also our customers and our, manufacturer partners. And so we just want to be very slow and methodical and deliberate about the way that we, re-enter travel and engagement with folks. So right now we've migrated to virtual. So we have a number of virtual events planned. Really, I've planned events out through November at this point virtually. Even when we do go back, and that's another thing that's changed, right? Even when we are able to have live events again, we will continue virtual events. And the reason for that is because our integrators and our advisory council have, they have been very clear on the fact that they feel like these virtual events may be a little bit better. So, from an ability to access content, an ability to share with more of their salespeople versus just the one or two that you can, allow outside of the office for a day, right? They are appreciating the additional education, and I can vouch for that too. I love, my day has not stopped even though I'm at InfoComm. So I've been able to, watch a keynote and then push pause while I handle an email and then go back and push play again. And you could never do that. I probably could count on one hand the number of keynotes that I've actually been able to attend at InfoComm because of my meeting schedule. Right. So, there are benefits of, these type of environments. Obviously we miss the face-to-face and the networking portion. And, I think that, I think those are very necessary and it's an important part of what we do, but the content being on demand is really super helpful. So, and our customers are saying the same thing. So
Yeah, I think it's going to be a permanent transformation. Not that in-person events are going to go away, but as you say, virtual events will complement them and serve us in ways that the in-person events don't quite have the ability to do. I mean, in-person
absolutely.
events have benefits that virtual events could never match, but in
Hmm.
the same way, virtual events too have their place. And I think one sitting alongside the other is going to be the norm for the long term.
I agree 100%. So yeah, so that's an exciting discovery, really,
Yeah,
right? So yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Is there anything else that you think that I should know or our readers should know? Anything I might have forgotten to ask about or a topic we haven't had a chance to broach yet?
I think the only other thing that I would probably just mention is just our focus on education during this time for our customers. And so, we, again, lots of feedback from our customers on the type of content they need to see, the type of education, the certification programs, and those types of things. And so, I think we had talked about maybe the fact that we were working on our LMS platform the last time we spoke. We've actually launched it now. And so there's a lot of content. It's free of charge to our customers, customers of SYNNEX. And so, there's a lot of information out there for our partners. And then we also have just a regular, weekly webinar series on a number of topics. Actually, several weekly webinar series on a lot of different topics. But the goal is really to be, focused and specific to certain topics that customers have been very clear that they want to hear from us. And so I think that's been super helpful to be able to, instead of doing a day long event about, with every kind of training that you could think of and more generalistic in nature, we can get laser focused on the type of education that we're providing. And not only that, but the audience that should attend. So if it's a more technical, engineering type training versus an executive level insight kind of series or a sales specific, training, it's really allowed us to kind of get focused in on who we're sharing, the right content with.
Right.
So that's something that we're doing as well, in addition to our virtual events and then our LMS platform. So
One thing I'll just mention about webinars, I'm sure you probably are familiar with our Weekly Wire e-newsletter. Within the Weekly Wire e-newsletter, we have something called Integrator Essentials, where we essentially apprise our readers of important webinars going on that week.
okay.
100% free, no cost whatsoever. But all I basically need is the name of the webinar, the date and the time, a reg link. If you want to have Bill or Eliza or someone send that to me, we would be happy to include those in the Weekly Wire. As I say, free of charge. It's just a service to our readers. That goes out to, I think, about 28,000 people. So it may help kind of juice the registrations if there's anything where you think our integrator readers, our consultant and engineer readers would benefit from attending.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that, Dan. I'll definitely share that schedule with you.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay.
Well, unless there's anything else, I'd really like to thank you for your time. I appreciate the briefing and your insights. Always a pleasure to learn what you're thinking about and what SYNNEX is doing.
Thanks. Appreciate it.